we've started, it may not be an official thing, but we've always told everybody, in a world where you can choose anything, choose kindness, because it kind of overlaps a lot of the things that DEI is supposed to do. Diversity, equity, inclusion. It's really about being non-homogeneous in the workplace environment. And if we're gonna do that in terms of hiring, that means we're bringing in people from different backgrounds, different environments, different upbringing.
Reach out to them specifically if I'm seeing that they're not as engaged as the other ones, and they're not. And sometimes you get these signals, right? That it's not like they don't know much about this topic. That's why they're not speaking as much, or they come from a different background. That's why they're not speaking as much. And so you would have to really just call them and see where their thoughts are in a meeting. Hey everyone,
Welcome to Outsourcing and More with
Penny and
Francis. We're glad you're listening because we've got a lot to talk about. Business, tech, investments, business mobile apps, web platforms, and all the latest trends in the outsourcing industry and more.
we'll give you tips, insights, and strategies on how to navigate the world of entrepreneurship and the gig economy.
So if you own a business, whether it's big or small,
A brand new startup,
or you're part of the huge outsourcing community as a tech professional, a VA, or an employer,
better start subscribing because this is the podcast for you.
so let's start achieving more. Hello, everybody.
Hey everyone, welcome to Outsourcing and More. My name is Penny.
And this is Francis, and welcome again to another episode of our second season. And we are very, 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 very happy and very enthusiastic. And I think it's one of those topics that we find ourselves very, very passionate about. So much so that we had to do a second episode on the same topic because it's just very big. And to give us a little bit of a background, last time we were talking about diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace, and we specifically talked about um, biases
Yes,
and how unconscious
DI and
biases.
recruitment and unconscious bias. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I'm not even sure if we talked about it, like how it affects people in the workplace. Uh, and that's where we're going to jumpstart our kickstart our topic today, wherein we want to say, how do we put together, or how do we put into practice DEI and how it should promote a better work environment for everybody, right? So I will ask you again, knowing what you know
Hot seat.
now,
Yeah.
I'm putting in the hot seat. Knowing what you know now about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you've had you were able to do your little introspection. You were able to learn about your own biases
Mhm.
and how it
Yeah.
affects you in terms of recruitment and all that. Uh, what have you learned about it, and what would you like, or have what have we done to improve ourselves personally, yourself personally, ourselves? I'm putting you in the hot seat, asking you about myself. My goodness.
You mean me personally, or
Let's
our
start with you
company?
personally because I'm curious.
Uh, hmm. I think you know, and I have mentioned this before. There are certain practices that we already do, and that I already encourage our teams to do. Especially about being vocal, right? And that's part of the and you 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 ask me and then I say you.
Because we're actually one person. we've always been we've always been each other's better half. So you you and
And what I was about to say is that it makes me happy to find out and to realize that okay, there are certain practices that we are already doing that is part of DEI. Like DEI has been around for quite a few years, but we've been doing these practices way before it became something
it
that
was such a good
everyone was
it was
doing.
such a good feeling, like
Yeah.
okay. We're actually going. Maybe we didn't tick all of the boxes,
Yes, we did. Of course not. I think
but we
there's,
were like at
and that's,
acceptable levels.
yeah, that was the realization too. Okay, so we do these things, but then of course we are also lacking. There are some things that we can still be doing
Yes. Yes.
to promote DEI. So for you, my question is, if there was one thing that you think we should be doing now to promote DEI, what do you think we should be doing in virtual?
So, thank you so much for that wonderful question. And may I say, can you please repeat the question? No, I think one of the things that we've started, it may not be an official thing, but we've always told everybody, in a world where you can choose anything, choose kindness, because it kind of overlaps a lot of the things that ERG is sorry that DEI is supposed to do: diversity, equity,
Mhm.
inclusion. It's really about being non-homogeneous in the workplace environment. And
Mm-mm.
if we're going to do that in terms of hiring, that means we're bringing in people from different backgrounds, different environments, different upbringings. We're taking people from different let's say both ethnic backgrounds. And we've taken people from corporate, we've taken people from freelance, we've taken male, female, uh you know of that age and of that age, and then of different pronouns, right? No, because
Yeah.
no, I love saying that. I think the biggest challenge now that we really should be addressing is, how do these people now coexist with each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think I mentioned this on our previous episode, wherein it's nice that we are doing this, but when we start bringing them all together, how are these people supposed to treat each other and interact? Uh, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question already, but because uh, if you think about it now, when have you ever been what you felt like is the odd man out in a group? You find yourself in a group, but because you quickly realize that these people are all like, I don't know, either from the same company or from the same, or maybe all male when you're the only female, that you kind of have to keep a little part of yourself to be able to blend in with the group. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. Like you try to figure out what your, well, the thing that I do when that happens to me is I try to figure out what's common between us and
Yes.
not focus so much on what's common between all of them and me
Yes.
being the odd woman out. But I try to figure out what's the common ground, and try to connect through that. But I definitely do, and that's me, right? And and it just, it's that didn't happen, or that didn't come to me naturally. Like I had to work on trying to find a common ground so that I can start communicating, because previously when that happens to me, I just become a wallflower, especially during
Yes.
events.
But see, that's the thing, and that's leading me to what I really want to happen. What I think I don't want is for people to start hiding away pieces of
Mm.
themselves because they feel that they need to do so in order to blend in with the group. Like, if you're the
Mhm.
only, I mean, there's a lot of biases between us. I think between the two of us, we embody a lot of the personalities that are that may be victims of bias.
Mhm.
You like, I am, when you say you're both, uh like here, for example, here where I am right now in London, when I'm in groups, it's very different because I am both a person of color, I am gay, I am, uh you know all of the things, wherein sometimes I would be in a group, it's all like all white people and I'm standing out. Now I have to fight to to just say, blend in. But what I really appreciate there
Mm-hmm.
is then when they say, "Oh, where are you from in the Philippines? What do you do? How is it different from here?" And they're asking you to talk about yourself and the thing that makes it different because they find it interesting, and that's something that I appreciate. Like imagine if you were, you know, a single parent of four in a group of non-married people, then you kind of want to keep that side of yourself because do you think that they'd be interested in that when when you're in that group where people are just interested in clubbing and so you don't want to say
Mm-hmm.
that oh sorry I can't go with you guys because I have to have bonding session with my kids. I kind of see it all the time with people who don't share because they feel like what they have to share is you know
uh, People will not be interested in.
people will
Yeah,
not be
yeah.
interested in, right? And that's the thing that I struggle to say, like, how can you break this cycle of people keeping what's making them unique? Because what they say, what we see as the odd one, the source of the bias is actually what makes them unique. You know, like in a group of people from from universities, and you're the only non-graduate, for example, they would keep that to themselves, right? So I think that's the first thing that you really have to find ways to break because we say we've done good in terms of
Mm-hmm.
being diverse, but now that we've brought them together, that's really where the challenge now comes because you now have people from the very different walks, but there would still be common things about them, and then within those little common groups, somebody would stand out. How do you help them celebrate what makes them stand out?
I think for me, and I can only speak um because this is virtual and we are operating as leaders in it, so I can only speak as someone in leadership, right? When that happens and I see someone who's kind of looking like the odd woman or man out, or all of the pronouns, they, yeah, it's incumbent, or it's up to me as the leader to actually the one to start reaching out.
You lead by
um
example.
Yeah, because if I don't, they will just remain silent. And sometimes, that's just their personality. They are just silent in group settings. And so you would have to reach out to them one on one, and that's when you finally get who their true personality. And so that's where I can speak. Because that's the position that we're in. So I reach out to them specifically if I'm seeing that they're not as engaged as the other ones, and they're not. And sometimes you get these signals, right, that it's not like they don't know much about this topic. That's why they're not speaking as much, or they come from a different background. That's why they're not speaking as much. And so you would have to really just call them and see where their thoughts are in a meeting, just so that they would speak up. So it's part that. And then the other thing is, and we also say this to our teams, like, we do try to tell them, right, that the only way for us to know what's happening with them, or if they're experiencing any challenges or problems, or if they have any concerns, is if they tell us.
They have to speak
Like,
up.
we definitely do. Yeah, they have to speak up because we're not mind
Yes.
readers,
Are
right?
we?
We do see signals, or like, the words that they use, how to use it, right? Like, you do have those, but if you want your specific problem or challenge addressed, then you would have to speak up, and that's what we really encourage them to do.
The interesting things that I find, and maybe it's different now compared to
Mm.
the us of 5 years ago, is I don't understand the challenges. Like personally, I don't understand the challenges of parenthood.
The reason why I was laughing earlier, because I specifically remember you asking me why I have to stay at home with my kids and not go with you
It's like,
somewhere,
oh,
right?
but I have to put my kids. Oh, just give them Valium. Just give them Valium, and you can go out afterwards. but it's true. Sometimes, as a leader, you have to realize that the things that you the things that you value is not necessarily what other people value. And I've actually seen that, back in the
Mm.
call center days, when you have like team leads who would like, oh, I'll invite my team, like, because it's a Friday morning, oh sorry, a Saturday morning after shift, and they say, oh, let's go video, okay, or let's go just coffee, pizza, or drinks. And then inevitably there would be people in their team who say they don't want that. They want to log out on the dot, go home, because there are family duties to take care of, right? And sometimes they don't understand that, and I see where it alienates them
Mm-hmm.
from those individuals because they fail to reach out and say understand. Of course, when you have kids, you have to go home and be with them. If that's your choice, and it should be your choice, but I've actually seen it happen wherein they say, hmm? What's the word, KJ, or like when they don't want to,
Party
party
pooper,
poopers,
I think is
yeah, because
the
and
English.
because
Yeah.
sometimes they actually do make an effort, they will join, but they will leave after one drink because they
Yeah.
said, okay,
Yeah.
I will
I
join you
have
for one drink, and
I've
they were
done
like,
it
no,
before.
no, no, stay. But you kind of have to be the person that says, guys, he's got kids, he has to get back to them, so we have to actually be thankful for the 30 minutes that he gave us, right? But anyway, I mean, having said that, one of the things that I really dream of, like, strengthening uh in our team is like having employee resource groups. I have, we've talked
Yeah.
about that. It's a I've seen the practice. It's great. You know, I thought maybe it was how corny just to have, like, what were our jokes again? Single parents groups, dad bod
Yeah.
groups.
Dad bod groups. Yeah. So employee resource groups are sorry, just to define them,
Yes,
right? Employee resource groups are like subgroups within
within your
your
organization.
company.
Yes,
Yeah, within your organization, so that people can join depending on
even if
what
they're not part of
resource
your
group
own
this is.
team, it's part of the larger
Yes.
organization as a whole. It's meant to say we are a group of people with similar interests who are there to help
Yes.
empower uh, ourselves because we understand the struggles that we're going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you see that,
Yeah.
like, or at least, uh, no, I was gonna say like here in the UK, but when I've been reading up on resource groups, the most common one, like, women for the company, or single parents for the, and I started reading up on them, and then, like, black women for the company name. They're
Mm-hmm.
actually very powerful if you think about it, because again, surprisingly, it can be very isolating
Yeah.
when you're an odd man out in the group, and you realize that you may be part of a team, but it's not I think it's very, very lucky for you to be part of a team where there's enough of you, people who represent you, to be, to allow yourself to be free and share your experiences. But if it just so happens that you're in a team that isn't that, then, then there should be a resource within the company that allows you to talk about your concerns and struggles and advocate on your behalf on why you need such and such care. Because again, and I'll be the first person to own up to this. I wasn't aware of the challenges, again, of parenthood. Like, why do you need to take extra
Mm-hmm.
time, or why, let's just go down to the most simplest facts. Like, why do you need to take time off as soon as you give birth? Like, oh, come on, it's gone. You can go back to work. I'm kidding. It's out, right? Your back is better. Go back to work. No, let's just say, like, it wasn't us, but there was a certain I'm trying to be candid about it, but we have seen that, you know a lot of women, especially if they're freelancing back on our on other business models,
Mm.
we're in, just because you uh what's the word, no work no pay, then they're actually very pressured to either prepare for the pregnancy or go back to work as soon as they're able to.
As soon as,
And
yeah.
and again, talking to some members of the group who had to go through that, it was actually you realize that, oh my gosh, I wish we could have done something more for you when you were going through your pregnancies. And you know I mean, I want to say that I wish we do more. I wish we can do more. I wish we're doing better. I want to say we're doing better now, but there's always now the thought
Mm-hmm.
of I wish we can do more. But again, I am not the right resource for it, and therefore we should find people who can actively champion for 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 that.
For these specific groups. The only the other thing that I want to say about employee resource groups, especially because of like how we work, like all of our teams work remotely,
Yes.
and so these employee resource groups are very very important because it can already be isolating that you're working from home and sometimes the only person awake at night, which I am. Right, and having these employee resource groups, and in our case it needs to be in a communication channel of our choice. Well, right now we're
Slack.
using Slack. I don't know what our listeners companies use, but we can create channels in Slack where we are bringing all of these people who are working remotely, and depending on, again, the group that you want, the employee resource, like the theme for that employee resource group, whether it's women, men, single parents, what have you. It just make sure that you have an avenue where they can actually congregate.
Yes.
Congregate, is that
They
right?
should be
Yeah,
able
that
to
they
find
can
that
that
place
they can
to
actually
channel. Yeah,
converse. Yeah.
like a like a group specific water cooler conversation, just for you to be able to
Yes,
say,
yes, exactly.
because you may not even be aware of your own challenges, right? And you want to
Mm-hmm.
be able to ask it, is it just me, or does anybody have anything specific struggle when they're going through X, Y, and Z, right? But let's say move on to, so that's one of the things that we're doing, employee resource
Mm-hmm.
groups. I think one of the other things that we really should be doing is to, you know how we say it's not worth jack until it's written down on paper. And sometimes people say,
Yeah,
other teams
true.
would say, yes, we'd like to practice, uh, you know, and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. You have to first write it down. If it's
Yes,
not,
you have to have
yeah,
your policies down. If it's just a known thing, then it's,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that was sort of like I said, that was sort of us before, but until you actually write it down on
Mm-hmm.
paper, until it's part of your motto, your credo, and say, this is our company and this is what we believe in, right? There has to be a place where people can go and say and research and say, this is a company that I want to work for because this is their stand when it comes to diversity and inclusion. You write it down, and then it becomes policy, and then it becomes law, and it becomes something that everybody, it translates from, not just, it's not just a top down policy, because we can't, as much as you want to say that, that it's top down, that leadership should embody,
Hmm.
there should always be like a guide, a bible for everybody to live by, and say, if they see it happening, you tell somebody and say, yes, we have something to reference again, and this is something that we shouldn't be promoting as a company. It's where policies come from. It's where, it's where the rest of your stand as a company goes. Like, you know say for example, if you say, witness, what's the opposite of DEI? If you see what if it were a client who were, this is the biggest example that I can give, is when I knew of this client who dropped one of their customers. It was a big customer, because in the
Mm-hmm.
US it was
Oh, oh, yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
an
You told me
alt-right
about
group.
this.
So they stood for everything that was literally against diversity. It was far right. It was Christian national. It was anti-LGBT. And then when when the people who were closing the sale, they didn't realize that, because at the end of the day, a sale's a sale, right? But when they started onboarding, and then they realized that this is the company, they brought it up with their team. It literally went all the way to the top, and the decision was no, we're not gonna work with you. I'm sorry because you don't reflect our values. And I think that was a great thing. Was it was it did it affect their bottom line? At the end of the day, they probably did.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it was a big customer as it was told to me. But at the same time, is it the right thing to do? I think yes. So I quite like that story. I remember, you know, I hope we
Yeah.
don't.
No, I think what you're really getting at is, DEI is not just, your internal, like, because previously to me it was just about, okay, how do we treat the team that we have, right, the people that work with us. And then you also think about, okay, and based on the story when you told me this, so DEI is not just about promoting it inside, it's also about, now we're also talking about the people that we work with, not within the company but also our clients, right, our vendors. Are they, and because one of our values really and that's why we're very very passionate about this topic, is because one of our core values is inclusivity. And so if one of our vendors, one of our suppliers, or one of our clients isn't for the I, then of course we will also make the same choice, because we are trying to
And
promote this,
imagine,
right?
imagine if you actually run into that scenario we're in. As an outsourcing agency, they say you close. If that happened to us, right, and we happen to like
Mm.
build the team for you, and then of course us being inclusive would put together, just for example, like black, white, Latino, gay, women, and they're all like, we don't want to work with them. What are you gonna do then? Actually, you know what? There's that one other. Uh, I can't believe I forgot this. Actually, what that I guess it's also an eye opener in terms of like being there for all of our teams is, and increasing our
Mm.
sensitivity to dealing with these teams. I think I brought this up to you la- uh, last time, is when we had from a pronoun perspective. Was it a pronoun perspective or a name perspective? Do you remember one of your team members who
When
transitioned?
we
Yeah.
onboarded. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we hired someone who's a
Yes.
trans, right? Who's a trans. So when we were onboarding him, we used the
Was
name
on.
that
Mm,
he had on his resume, which was
yeah.
a female, uh,
But I
a
do
female
remember with
name.
he goes by this name. He goes by his name, and we call
Yeah,
him by his name because in the nature of
yeah,
Filipinos, we thought that was a nickname or a preferred name, but
yes.
most people didn't really, you know, take it to heart that you use the name on your resume or on your identification, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so this is very awkward because yeah, it was very awkward because he was using a different name altogether, and we onboarded him using his former name. And so he came to me and asked if his name could be changed, because we were the name that we onboarded was his
Mm,
dead name. And so and thankfully the client that we have, the account that we have, they're also sensitive about this, they're very sensitive about this. And so it just took me just telling them, hey, I need to change the name for this agent, for this associate. And it was just that simple, and it was changed altogether. But it was a reminder and a
yes.
lesson for me and for us to be more sensitive about those things. I don't know why we didn't even ask at the very onset on what we should have
That was the most
used, and maybe
interesting thing.
because,
I will take this outside
yeah.
of Virtua because now I think to myself, oh my god, that was probably very painful because so I will tell you, partner Jim, who works with a lot of makeup artists, hairstylists, and a lot of them are in the are trans. and transgendered, right? And again, I think one of the problems is in the Philippines, it's not that easy to change your name with the basis of I identify as. And I was telling you that one of the things that I remember then is, from the legal side of things, is you can change your name in the Philippines, but there's very very strict guidelines to it. Like it has to be like the name was born out of ridicule, and therefore you
Yeah.
have to change it, or it's very close to X, and therefore you have to change it, or it's causing you distress to be related to that name. But for some reason, choosing to say because I identify as female and therefore I want my name to be changed isn't that easy. When you think about it, it really does cause them
Yeah.
distress.
No.
And I remember it was a very funny memory to me, but now I realize it really shouldn't be that funny because so in the
Mhm.
nature of things, we collect their names and for payments, especially when you have big projects and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I will not mention the name, but one of my very very dear friends, so I'll call her Paula, because there's also a very good chance that she will never hear about this podcast. I'm kidding. But when we were collecting the names for a big project, we needed their actual names because of their bank,
Mhm.
right? And she was very very hesitant to give me her bank details. And she was like, "Can't you just transfer me Gcash?" And said, "No, this particular project is paying via bank, so I need your bank details." And you realize it's something that she's never given us. And I realized as well, it's like I've never seen her ID. And so when she gave me her ID, it was like, "You will never tell anyone, okay?" I think I was threatened into silence
That's
when I saw the ID, and I was like, and my dear friend is
your face.
nearing her golden years, so there's syllables in Tagalog. It's actually four. It's that kind of name. Yeah, like my dad. So my dad's name is Romy.
Okay. Okay.
His full name is Romualdo. And it was one of those kinds of names. It was just a funny contrast to
Okay. Yeah.
have
Yeah. I get
to
it.
have my to just see my
Paula, and
lovely
then
friend in that light. And now I again on reflection, I really saw the pain in her to not
mhm.
be associated with that name. It's that important to them that this is my chosen name. And that's one of the it's one of the life lessons that you kind of take. Respect the choice of the
Yeah.
name. Like, I wanted it to be a funny thing because it really was a funny memory, because when I think she was also trying to make light of it, like, you will never tell anyone. That was the funny thing about it. I think, because you understand. But now, we now have that choice to respect people and not make it a painful experience for them. So that's one of the things that I
Mhm.
truly respect, and one of the core memories that we take, with our dear team member and my friend, to look into their eyes and see this is very important to me, because I have probably like 8 names by now, depending on how people call me. Frank, Frankie, Francis, Franz, Sis. And I don't mind all of them, but for some people, the identity is very, very important. Like, I chose to be this name and I
Mhm.
don't want to be associated, but you respect that. So yeah, it's one aspect.
Yes, definitely. So I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, and we've talked about a lot of our realizations with running teams, and even interacting with clients, interacting with even our friends, right? And making sure that we're promoting DEI. So we've talked about the pronouns. We've talked about employee resource groups. We've talked about being sensitive. I
Sensitivity
think
training.
is being sensitive, and yeah, sensitivity training. Yeah, I think that's one
Yeah.
thing that we should also do, right? With Virtua, is to have our leaders, well, actually everyone, go undergo sensitivity
It's
training. I think
yeah.
we could have that
Can't
project,
just be the
yeah,
leaders.
do
Has to be
this
everybody,
year.
because again, the sensitivity has
Yeah,
to
it
be.
has to be everyone.
You plop together Skittles. You plop together Skittles. The Skittles have to respect each other. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. And then the most important thing is to have these policies documented
policy,
and written down.
the
I think
sensitivity
is the
training.
number
Well, at
one
the end
thing
of the
that you have
day,
to. Yeah,
maybe the
sensitivity
shortest
training.
thing that I will talk about this, but maybe the most important to other companies who have, who if you're in leadership and you are interested
Mm-hmm.
in promoting this, you can't just say, "Oh, write policies." Write the policies down, promote this thing. The most important thing is for leadership to commit. So leadership
Yes.
commitment, leadership accountability, it has to start. It still has to be top down. We say that it has to be everybody, but you also live by example. You still say that we live through it. So oh my God, the responsibility is just so big on yourself because something. It's just funny because I'm kind of stuck in that era. Kind of stuck in that era. Huh?
With what era?
The the
With
era
what
of
era?
I mean you kind of had
What?
to grow through that uh that
Yeah.
you talk about the Gen Z people now who are like you can't say that or
Mm-hmm.
or that joke is inappropriate or
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, but I actually went through
Mm-hmm.
a growing phase and stage where that was
Oh,
actually
I
funny, where
understand.
that was
Mm-hmm.
actually all right. And now you have to
Yes,
transition to,
I understand.
yes, it needs to be PC, it needs to be inclusive. So sometimes I feel like I'm caught between two worlds because maybe when I get together with my friends who are in the same, maybe we might still have fun and talk about that. I might have friends who say I do not respect the QIA plus plus plus. They don't understand people who
Mm-hmm.
transition or they don't understand pronouns. And the funny thing is I understand where they come from. I do understand where they come from because
Because you were, yeah,
you were from a
because
time
you
when
went
that
through.
wasn't a thing and I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily fighting for for that kind of recognition because that wasn't what I was fighting for. But there are brothers and sisters, friends
Mm-hmm.
and family who were fighting to be seen and heard. Again, we're not just talking about gender; we're talking about you know single women in the workplace, and you realize that it's only very recent that being a single mother is accepted, that being, what's the word, sorry, you're married and you're not separated, is acceptable in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace or in society in general. That was actually very recent if you think about it. It's not that there
Mm-hmm.
was a time when you were the butt of every joke if you uh if you were right, and just, or if you're a single mother.
To put it simply, you were the embarrassment of the family
Exactly. But
if
now
that
we
happened for
are,
you. Mm-hmm.
they've fought to be empowered, and we've celebrated Strength and Women's Month, and I think that's one of the things that I'm very very proud to celebrate as well, and understand. If you're a single parent, you need additional help because you're both, um as they say, they're both mother and father.
Mom and dad.
Celebrate that. So yes, there's a stronger, there's a bigger responsibility in the shoulders of leadership because you have to understand each and every one of the people that you represent in the company. I thank you.
Well said. Well said. Is that the ending of the Miss Universe question at the start of at the
Philippines!
start of this episode? Sorry, I'm not gonna say it. Anyway, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. This is a wrap on another
Outsourcing and more.
episode of Outsourcing and More. We do hope you learned a lot. If you have any feedback, comments, anything, please email us at oam at oam at
Please
dot
listen.
com. Please also, yes, please also follow us or hit the subscribe button. We are on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. And please do not forget to leave us a rating and some
We do love
comments
listening to
down
them. We
below.
do love reading your comments. We do love all of your suggestions and how to improve. So thank you for taking the time to do that, and we hope to see you on the next episode.
Bye bye.
Subscribe to our podcast.
We also have a YouTube channel where you can see the faces behind the voices.
You can also find Virtual Solutions on Facebook and LinkedIn.
And if you've got a topic you've been wanting to learn about, let us know by sending us an email at
oam@virtualsolutionsos.com. Again, it's oam@virtualsolutionsos.com.
see you in the next episode.
Goodbye.
Bye.